devil are you?
We want your company, mate.
You won't refuse us.
Oh, this is really too much.
This way.
You know where you are now? Yeah, I won't forget this place in a hurry. Come on, we must.
Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
That must remain my secret for the time being.
I hope it is an entertaining one.
There is no plot.
You waste my time at your peril.
Let's have a tune to cheer us all up. Come on, everybody, join in.
Here come the drums!
Hello!
Slancheva and Falche to Tarang Gus Fosklat, a sometimes Scots Gaelic podcast that takes the high road and the low road and the random road, the extremely random road, through the show we like to call Doter Co, or Dr. von Ver, if you're feeling German. My name is Chris of the mighty Clan Taylor.
And I'm Pete Paschal. Despite what you may have just heard, there's no fiddles are being played on you today. This is a fully random Doctor Who podcast called Pull to Open. And Chris and I are a couple of journalists, a couple of guys, a couple of amateur historians sometimes that go all around the Doctor Who canon, no matter how north in the UK we might get.
We've been getting north.
Yeah. But
I have to say,
despite our yeah, tell me about the randomizer. What?
It seems to love one country in particular. One kingdom in particular, you might say.
I think that's what you meant. Yeah, the country.
Country. Well, you know,
I guess it was a country.
We may be talking about why it's no longer a country in this story. But the randomizer loves Scotland. It has taken us to many a Peter Capaldi story, one of its favourite doctors. It has taken us to Terror of the Zygons, in which I first unleashed my bad Scottish accent. Recently, it took us to Tooth and Claw, in which the Doctor described himself as Dr. Jamie McCrimmon. And then it took us to the Ice Warriors, in which Jamie McCrimmon was there, and we were in the Scottish Highlands in the future. But more recently on our random journey...
you missed the Eaters of Light.
The Eaters of Light. We did the Eaters of Light. Yes, yes. Peter Capaldi in Scotland. Yeah. It was so Scottish.
I'm not sure. We might end up now with Scottish bingo. We're not.
Oh my God.
We'll find out. But let's go recap our recent journey, which may or may not involve other kingdoms.
Indeed.
Previously on Pull to Open. So 3 stories ago, we were in, I guess, the Kingdom of New Amsterdam, come to think of it.
We were.
Yeah. It was a little adventure set in New York City back in the Depression, back in the 30s, where there was some plotting going on. Plotting by some other kingdoms. Kingdom from Skaro, which was the cult of Skaro. And they were doing some stuff there in the Empire State Building that was Daleks in Manhattan. And Evolution of the Daleks.
Yes, which had some pretty bad accents. Not Scottish ones, but Scotland like Skaro. Yay, there we go. There's the Daleks. Scotland like Skaro, a lot of immigrants who left for American shores, apparently. And then after Daleks in Manhattan, we popped over to England and London in 1966 for Doctor Who and the War Machines, which, just the War Machines, but the story that contains the character name Doctor Who, that might become relevant.
Well, I think at the last minute they edited out the Doctor Who and for that one. But that did not happen in the next story that we ended up doing, which was, of course, the only story, complete story anyway, with Doctor Who in the title. Doctor Who has been in the title of individual episodes, notably The Death of Doctor Who. But in this second adventure, in the extremely confident the Third Doctor era of his first season, season 7, it is Doctor Who and the Silurians.
Yes. Doctor Who and the Silurians after Spearhead from Space, the second Third Doctor story. The second Pertwee story. And then, Pete, after we went there, what did we ask the randomizer for? What did you ask the randomizer for?
God, who could remember?
God, well, okay, I'll tell you. I asked the randomizer for more use of Doctor Who.
Boy, did we get it.
The name Doctor Who, boy, did we get it. And you asked the randomizer, you'd like the sort of the darker, more adult tone of Doctor Who and the Silurians.
Sounds like me.
And we certainly got the randomizer actually gave us what we wanted for Christmas at the end of the year. So, because it took us from the Third Doctor's second story back in time to the Second Doctor's second story, Season 4, Serial 4, Doctor Who and the Highlanders.
Are we just going to say Doctor Who and?
Well, actually, that was the name on the shooting script. On the script that it was written, it was written Doctor Who and the Highlanders. It did not actually end up on the screen that time.
Yeah, they always edit out the Doctor Who and. Arguably, you could say they always simply edited out the and. Because the title Doctor Who does appear in every single Doctor Who story. I'm going to point that out right now.
Excellent point, sir. Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. You've just blown my mind. Like, every single Doctor Who story is a Doctor Who and, but just with a very, very tiny and, like an infinitesimal and. I love that.
So the Silurians is Doctor Who and Doctor Who and the Silurians.
It's a multi-Doctor story! No, not really.
But we're not here to talk about the Silurians, guys. We're not here to talk about even the Highlanders just yet. What we're here to talk about is emojis, specifically emojis that represent the title of a Doctor Who story. That's right. It is time for the Whomoji Challenge.
No!
And we're going back, since we've gone back in time, and, we're looking at some old, some traditions, I guess, in the Highlands. We're going to be doing the traditional format here on the Whomoji Challenge. We're going to have me torture Chris with some bad-smelling cargo holds, and they're all full of stinky fish emojis.
Whoa.
And he's going to have to sort through those and find the real emojis for the title, because I'm just going to give him some good ones here that will represent an actual.
You're just sending me into an indentured servitude. I'm off to harvest Whomojis, but okay, it's fine.
All right,
it's a lost cause.
Okay, so I've got a weird one because one of these I think is a custom emoji, but I'm going to go for it. And this one's going to be I think it's going to be a tough one because it's a little bit of wordplay going on here. So we'll see. Okay. We'll see how you do.
All right, and there is a definitive answer for this one.
There is.
Okay, just check it.
But it's also kind of unusual because I believe some of these are custom. So, but I'm going to just give them to you. Are you ready, sir? It's 3 emojis.
Bring it on.
All right.
Yeah.
So, first one is the old man who represents Fidel Castro.
The old man who represents Fidel Castro. Who could forget that Doctor Who story?
And then the next one is the Cuban flag. So I think that's just sort of emphasizing the point. And the last one is a faucet with some water sort of being poured into it. So it's sort of like a faucet indicator emoji. So if you were in a place where you weren't sure where the faucets were, you'd look for this sign.
Good Lord. Is it Doctor Who and the Cuban Revolution? that famous unaired story? That's too hot for the BBC.
Potable water, I guess, is the emoji now that I'm looking it up. Potable water.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can paste this in the chat, but I will do my best. Basically, find a brown sort of elderly man with a beard.
Got it.
Cuban flag.
Yeah.
And then I'll post this link, I guess, to the faucet emoji.
Could this perhaps be a pun?
I think, yeah, like I mentioned, I believe there's a little bit of wordplay going on here.
The lowest form of wit and the lowest form of Whomoji. But I'll try and guess it. Okay, so Castro, Cuba. I mean, it's the doubling down on Castro and Cuba that's kind of getting me. Castro, Cuba, Fidel water, Castro water, Cube water, the power of 3. No.
So we got a 2-minute limit, so I think we're already on about 45 seconds here. So I'm gonna give you a couple hints. So don't take the faucet literally. There are components that make up a faucet. Things that make it work. What is a component? What's one of them? Perhaps not the most relevant one.
What's a pipe?
You could almost say a tap is this.
Oh, good Lord! It's a reservoir, a well. Why is this not connecting to any single Doctor Who title I can think of in my head? It's the Witchfinders. I don't know. I'm panicking. I'm just drowning witches at this stage.
20 seconds left. So, like I say, the Cuba thing, I think, is just to emphasize who the guy is. So Castro is what you have. Yep. Then you have this component.
Castrovalva!
It's Castrovalva!
Oh my God! I think I just had a regeneration crisis, Pete. I think we're going to need to pause the podcast while I go into my zero room just to recuperate from that Whomoji. My goodness!
Boom! You got it.
Wow!
You got it. It's a little funny, right? It's
I mean, I like it. I feel that as a purveyor of puns myself, I am being punished. No pun intended. For my past crimes, so it's okay.
Well, we can thank Chris Harris for that particular form of torture. Thank you so much, Chris. Very creative play on words there. That's going right into the Pull to Open Codex, which is every single Doctor Who story in sequential order. It is the tome that powers the randomizer. And you too can be just like Chris. In fact, this is it, guys. It's the beginning of 2026. It is time for a 2026 reload on the Whomojis. Each one of these are fan submitted. You can submit them via the Apple Podcast app by leaving a review. That is the absolute best way to submit Whomoji. You'll go right to the front of the line. But you can also submit them on our social channels. So feel free to DM us or comment on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever it's called today, Blue Sky, etc. Hit us on all of those channels, and we will see your Whomoji, and it'll get right into the mix. We're at Pull to Open and Pull to Open 63 on most channels. You're welcome. Now we don't have to say that later.
Now, if you so you can torture a Sassenach, but if you want to do something else that's interactive with Pull to Open and you happen to be watching us on Spotify, hi, Jamie McCrimmon says hi. We have another way to interact with the show. It's Pull to Open. If you pull from the bottom of the screen, you can see the option to rate the Highlanders. You'll also see that the polls stay open for as long as the Scots have hated the English, which is roughly 1,500 days. No, it's open for a while. So we have some preliminary results right now from Daleks in Manhattan, an evolution of the Daleks. You can still change. Time can be changed. Time can be rewritten if you don't like these results. But I gotta say that our ratings, listen to the end of the podcast for what all the ratings mean. Our ratings, there was a lot of hybridization going on, appropriately enough, for Daleks in Manhattan. Pete, you gave it a Dalek hater hybrid, Dalek professor hater. It's a good story, but also it's a bit of a bad story, but they learned something. I said Dalek hater Cassandra, but sort of roughly in the same area. But I think you are closer to where the public sentiment is. But we both nailed the Professor hater, which is the winner so far in this poll. It's just a plurality, not a majority. But runner-up so far is the Dalek. So, yeah, between the Hater and the Dalek, you're kind of running away with this, Pete. Nobody wanted a Cassandra, so my addition of it looks good.
Some did think it was the best ever, which is a very small portion of the voting public, but they did go for it. And I did get some comments. I noted some comments on TikTok and other places that so there's some fans think this is really underrated. I think it is generally underrated, but it does also. I think again the consensus here is that it definitely falls down in some key ways, as much as there is some really cool stuff to in it as well, which is essentially what my rating was saying. So I think we kind of landed the ship in the right spot here.
Exactly. Yes, I enjoyed visiting more a second time, which is sort of the hope for everything in New Who, especially in Pull to Open. It will have improved like a fine wine once we uncork it. But something else you can uncork is following us on the socials. Take a wee dram of at Pull to Open on TikTok and Blue Sky. We are Pull to Open 63 on everything else, not Pull to Open 1745. I don't know who that is, but on Instagram, X, most other places, that's what we're doing. You can become a true companion on YouTube, which is what you do, what you get. You not only get the show early, you get the show early with the version without my bad Scottish accent. So please sign up for that. I may be lying. I have
some editing to do, some very serious sound editing later in the week.
I've got some dubbing to do, is what I've got to do. Nice. I've got some looping work, as they call it in the biz. So you can be a true companion, like Jamie McCrimmon. And you can also...
Do that.
Do that. If you're on Spotify, go down to the show notes. There's a link in there. You can donate however much you want, however much you think this lost cause of fighting the randomizer is worth to you to listen along. But yeah, that's how you can support the show. And Pete, I've got a way you can support the show right now. Right. It's a little thing we like to call TLDW. Which stands for Too Long Didn't Watch, Too Long Doctor Who, Too Long Dr. Von Ver.
That's like what I'm doing here.
Yes.
The little first Doctor, second Doctor here.
So
for people not on YouTube, I'm currently got my tartan scarf, and I'm doing the little thumb thing that the first Doctor likes to do with his lapels.
Yes.
And I'm doing that. It's a good way to stall.
I should like a scarf like that.
It also indicates my nervousness for what I'm about to do, which is
Too Long Didn't Watch Too Long. Of course, The Highlanders is a missing story, entirely missing. We have the audio of it. We have the book audio read by Annika Wills, who played Polly.
Oh, nice.
In it, that's available on YouTube.
That's not how I watched it, but anyway, we can talk about that in a minute. That's what I want to talk about now.
Yes, but first of all, what in the heck happened after the Power of the Daleks and in the Highlanders in this 4-episode story? Now, with TLDW, we allot 30 seconds per Classic Who episode. So that means, Pete, you have, and it is your turn this week, because I had to do the full 3.5 minutes of the Silurians.
You did.
So, yeah, it's up to you to explain this. How you feeling about summarizing the Highlanders in 2 minutes?
Pretty good. It's fairly it's simpler than you expect, I think. Whatever you might have heard about the story. So yeah, feeling okay. I don't know. I feel like there's going to be, as always, some major stuff I need to leave out, but hopefully I make some good decisions along the way. Better decisions than, say, the Dr. Ben and Polly make throughout this adventure, but we'll get to that.
For extra points, so last time we did the TLDW, I did hamper myself by saying, the character's name as Doctor Who every time it came up, and failed instantly. But that just sort of tipped me over the edge. So you can, if you wish, describe him as Dr. Von Ver in this, but absolutely not necessary. And also, if you would like to adopt various guises Well, I'm sure you've got your comedy mustache ready to go. If you could do that in appropriate moments during the TLDW, just to make it a little more difficult, which is kind of, we're up in our game here in Season 7 of Pull to Open. But anyway, it is time. No more Stalin like Stallman. It is time for the official Pull to Open summary of the Highlanders in 2 minutes, starting in 3, 2, 1. Craig and Tony!
So the Doctor, Polly, and Ben materialize in the Scottish Highlands, and they don't know where they are, so Ben's exploring, and they realize they're just here at the end of the Battle of Culloden, and they're get to take refuge in a cottage where some other Scottish troops have sort of taken refuge, and the British are right outside, and then everyone gets captured while Polly and one of the women there, Kirsty, are going to get water. They end up being taken to Inverness, and they're about to be hung, except this guy, this corrupt solicitor named Gray, wants to get these prisoners and sell them as slaves to basically the West Indies, and basically make some money off just selling people who should be prisoners of war. So what happens is those folks get thrown into a ship, and first they're in prison, and they're there with one of the Scottish guys, Jamie, and Holly and Kirsty run into this guy, one of the commanders, this guy Finch. And they blackmail him because they sort of capture him, and then he doesn't want to be embarrassed that he was captured by 2 girls. So they're able to sort of leverage him to get closer to where Ben and the Doctor and everyone are. So Ben it basically pisses off Gray by ripping up contracts. They execute him by drowning him. He uses that to escape. The Doctor does all these elaborate disguises, first as a German, later as an old woman, later as a soldier, and then they end up outsmarting Gray and this guy Trask, who's the commander of the ship that they were going to ship these guys to the West Indies with. And so there's this big fight on board, because the Doctor and everyone smuggled weapons in there for the Scots, and then basically they all take off to France, while the Doctor and everyone go back to Scotland to get to the TARDIS with Jamie. They leave with him.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that you the addition of Jamie joining the TARDIS crew being just like 2 seconds over the 2-minute threshold. I like that because, of course, they only decided at the very end of the show to reshoot the scene at the end where Jamie actually does come on board the TARDIS. There is an original scene where he's just not there. He's left behind. So it's entirely appropriate that you went over. Great job.
Thanks.
I thought that was a really good summary. I particularly liked that you said British troops, not English troops. And we're going to get into the history corner later. I'm going to give spoiler.
Did you like that, or was that correct?
That is correct. The history. We'll get into the history corner. It's obviously going to be a big history corner. This is Culloden. This is one of the most pivotal events.
Culloden. Okay.
Culloden.
First time I've heard it pronounced correctly.
Culloden. As in it's sort of onomatopoeic. It's like the sound a dead Scotsman makes as he falls to the floor. Culloden. Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible piece of history. We will be getting into the history corner, and spoiler alert: the Highlanders gets good marks for being historically accurate. But the one thing it fails in is there's a lot of talking about the English troops, and you would get the impression from watching it, from a little bit of history, that this was a English versus Scottish conflict, or it's really more of a Scottish Civil War, and not fun fact, there were more Scots on the government side, on the British side.
Interesting.
That was, a lot more Scots there than there were in Bonnie Prince Charlie's ranks. But we'll get to the history corner. Let's talk about the story, and let's talk about, first of all, how did you watch it, Pete?
Well, I watched it via my preferred way for the missing episodes that have not been reconstructed with animation, and that is through the fan-made reconstructions that are mostly on Dailymotion. So that's kind of my go-to. I had a really good experience early on when we were doing these with Marco Polo. I thought the reconstructions there were amazing, and really felt like it was almost like the episode. Subsequently, nothing's been quite as good. This one wasn't too bad though. I feel like there's probably a little less surviving here of this story than there typically is. Like there's some telesnaps and a few photos, and then there's the bit from the War Games, which is used again and again. And I forget if that is actually the War Games. I think it's actually originally from this story and was used in the War Games. I'm not sure.
I was actually going to ask you that very question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it was originally in the story. I think that both of the scenes, from the War Games, the Jamie scene and the Zoe scene, were shot.
Well, they used that footage in a couple of places, particularly where the red coat is taking aim at Jamie to sort of represent certain things of the battles that happen here and there, or at least shots that are taken. So yeah, it was a pretty good experience. I vaguely remember reading the novelization many years ago. It's one of the novelizations I no longer have, so I couldn't do that this time around.
I'm missing novelization. Entirely appropriate.
But how about you? How did you watch it?
So it not only is the book read for you by Annika Wills on Spotify, there's also the actual audio from, I believe, it came out on CD in 2000.
Yeah,
that's also on Spotify, with linking narration by Fraser Hines.
Nice.
So yeah, you can really just go to Spotify and get it all. I did also watch the loose cannon reconstructions or bits of them. I kind of just more kind of flicked through.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. Loose Cannon, they famously did these reconstructions in the 80s, 90s, like early 2000s.
I think it was early 2000s, could be wrong.
Yeah, it's a bit VHS, isn't it? But yeah, there is, of course, surviving audio. There are surviving telesnaps from this. But it doesn't, you've got to say that like some of the other missing stories we've been to, there's a lot that you just can't quite see in your mind's eye, even with the telesnaps, like the battle at the end, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, because there's virtually no dialogue for about 3 to 4 minutes or something like that. It's quite lengthy, and there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of narration on the screen if you're watching the loose cannon. I imagine it's sort of similar in either the audio versions. So it's unfortunate. You almost want to always rate these kind of almost like at least a partial fixed point in time, because it's really hard to judge what they were putting together. But then again, there's a lot of stuff that does translate, right? Whether for better or for worse. Patrick Troughton does some interesting accents in this adventure. So we've talked about him impersonating the German doctor, and that's the main one.
I love the fact that in the script, apparently, it said that Dr. Von Ver has a slight German accent. So that is Patrick Troughton's slight German accent, and we should just be very glad that he didn't give us his full-on German accent, which would have, I think he would have gone full-on to like raving madness. But yeah, it's we should let's talk about Troughton, shall we?
Yeah, especially since we've done a couple of Troughton adventures fairly recently. So we've done the Ice Warriors, which is the following season, and then we did the Space Pirates, and obviously we've done other Troughton episodes. I felt like watching this story, it felt very peculiar to me to watch Troughton, this version of Troughton, after seeing those, because it's really kind of weird. I mean, clearly this is the second story. He's trying things out. The show's trying things out. Like the telesnaps at least show him in the stovepipe hat, which is obviously very famous from a lot of the publicity shoots, and it was kind of like, oh, this is, the persona of the hobo doctor and all that. So this is, I think most of that is from this story, the stovepipe hat wearing, and he doesn't even do it all that much. And he has these disguises, right? He's like the master of disguise, constantly. Like the old woman thing is probably the weirdest one. You kind of, even from the photographs and stuff, it's like, how is this fooling anyone?
First of all, in universe, I want to say maybe the master is watching this at a distance, going, "Disguises, eh, Doctor? What a brilliant idea!
I could do that, but better." And he probably did do it better. Yeah. So it's a little weird, and the thing is, the show is also trying something out, which is to say, it's trying how does Patrick Troughton do in his sort of traditional historical adventure, right? And so this is famously one of the it's basically the last of the pure historicals with no aliens or whatever that's trying to do something weird with history. The next one would be Black Orchid.
Well, yeah,
which is Black Orchid. You can count. I think you can count Black Orchid. It's a big gap.
Sort of made to think that there's a monster in there. I sort of feel like it shouldn't count, but you know what?
Right, but here this is clearly a flip. Like the Black Orchid is the exception that proves the rule going forward. You know what I mean? Like this is like they flipped a switch here, saying like we're not going to do those anymore. Partly because I think Troughton's doctor, they just even though you're sort of plugging him into something like the Reign of Terror or the Romans, his sensibilities aren't the same as William Hartnell's. Like William Hartnell would just play William Hartnell, the doctor, and just give himself a name or whatever. And here, maybe there was just more of an inclination. Oh yeah, we'll have him put on a German accent and have him do this other stuff. And that's the part. Obviously, we're making fun of it here, but I do feel like that is the weakest part of it. Like obviously he's unconvincing, but also it's like, is that who the doctor is? Is he is he James Bond or the Master of Disguise here? I don't know. Or Ethan Hunt would be a better analogy there.
Yeah, good one.
And I don't know if we really want to see that, at least not all the time, and certainly not 3 times in the same episode.
So let's do behind the scenes, and then let's do headcanon of what's actually going on with the character here. Behind the scenes, yes, there was a new sort of summary of the character issued at some level. New producer Innes Lloyd, I believe, might have been responsible for this, or Jerry Davis, the script editor who ended up writing all of this. The description of the character included this sense that he was the master of disguise, that they were going to sort of play up the Who aspect of Doctor Who. Oh, he can just pop up anywhere. And also, they have one of England's greatest comic actors at the time, Patrick Troughton, in this role. So they're going to try him out. But my goodness, Troughton ad-libbed so much. He ad-libbed more than Tom Baker. I mean, you think Tom Baker was like out of control. We sort of think of him as like, oh, he's too big for his boots, and he just wanted to ad-lib everything and, play fast and loose with the character a little bit. But Troughton did it first, and he did it here. And so the whole line that, let's deal with the Dr. Von Ver line.
Sure.
Is his name for his fake German doctor. He's German, by the way, because the King of England and Scotland, the King of Britain at the time, was German. So he pretended to be a Hanoverian doctor for the sake of the government troops. And he says his name is Dr. Von Ver. Now, that was it in the script. But then Troughton and the British officer, the guy playing the British officer, ad-libbed this whole thing of the officer saying, Doctor Who? And Troughton says, that's what I said. Which, the randomizer is sort of taking us here for that reason, and is, wants us, I guess, to continue the debate about whether that is actually the character's name. I think the fact that Troughton ad-libbed it, we don't need to deal with that. But behind the scenes, I want to say, like, this is, it's so appropriate that we had Castrovalva as the Whomoji challenge, because this retroactively feels like a regeneration crisis.
Right. Yeah. Actually, that's a fair point. I hadn't thought of that, but there's a little goofiness in Power of the Daleks initially, and obviously the resistance from Ben and Polly a bit. But here he's like all over the place. Like he's bouncing around, and because he's also so removed from the two of them throughout most of the story, it does have that feel. You're dead on.
It does, and he's doing unusual things. I mean, this may be the most violent I've ever seen the Doctor. If you sort of got weirded out by the violence in the Interstellar Song Contest, where Shooty-Gatwa's Doctor's basically kicking the bad guy when he's down, when he's already, immobilized, surrendered, and he's still kicking him. That's kind of what happens. Like, the Doctor literally takes Finch, who is the solicitor's servant, bangs his head on the desk and says, do you have a headache? Do you have a headache now? And the guy goes along with it, which is weird. But the Doctor is just like, he thinks nothing of bashing heads on desks. And there's a deleted scene where he's dressed as the washerwoman, and he's muscling up to the bar to get a beer, which, more on this later. We have to talk about this whole question of, is the doctor an alcoholic? Looks for his pints. The soldiers try to stop him from getting it. He literally knocks their heads together in what the script says is a most unladylike manner. And his eyes, he goes cross-eyed, like he's really playing up the comedy violence.
Right. You know, I often give Pertwee a hard time for that kind of goofball look when he's doing that sort of thing. But it predated him a little bit. So, I'm sorry, John. But yeah, you're totally right. There's a lot of violence here. Again, you could argue who's the most violent or whatever. Certainly, that we've seen the Doctor use guns. There was some various violence in the Tom Baker era, but this one, if they didn't have at least that one scene where he reveals that the gun he was using to threaten people wasn't loaded, it would be even more distasteful and very not Doctor Who-ish. At least they have that, which counterbalances it a little. But you're down on that whole thing with, I think it's actually Perkins, not Finch, where he's banging his head
yes, Perkins is the servant.
It's the sort of the servant guy of Grey. Yep. And it's just like they have a little bit of photos of this in the telesnaps in the reconstruction, and it's just what? It definitely feels like you're watching a different character there. That is not. Yeah, they're trying things out, and again, a lot of the stuff they're trying out isn't really working. I will tell you this.
Notice, by the way, in the telesnaps. While we're talking telesnaps and Troughton, did you see the scene? There's the scene where he's trying to he's playing up to Jamie's image of him as a doctor and talking about bloodletting and looking at the stars and, is the moon in Taurus, all that stuff. And he actually, you can see it in the telesnaps. He's pretending to have a telescope, but he's using his recorder. He's bringing out a telescope to look at the stars, but you can actually see in the telesnaps it is his recorder. So he's being very playful here. But is that supposed
to fool him? You know what I mean? They kind of have to step out of the show a bit. Jamie's not that dumb, I'm sure. I'm sure he can tell the difference between a musical instrument and a telescope. So is it what's going on? Is he just playing along? You almost don't want to think about it. Yeah, it's weird. Let's talk a little bit about Jamie, because this is his debut story. And like you said, they didn't quite know they were going to have him. I think they had originally had him sign a contract for 3 stories just in case, and then sort of at the last minute sort of thought, let's go for it. Let's keep him around.
They had an option,
He's a bit of a non-presence in his debut, I got to say. Yeah. He's there. He has some good lines and he delivers them well. So you get a sense of a character there from his limited lines. And this is prior to the last bit where he sort of escorts them back, which is, that you obviously get a lot of sense of loyalty and from that. But certainly throughout you get his loyalty, right? Because he's the guy who has the line about when Grey is sort of giving people the options. Do you want to be witness? Do you want to be hung? Or do you want to be a slave? Right? Basically, those the 3 things you can do. And when he talks about, do you want to turn witness? And he's like, you mean turn traitor? Or whatever. He basically is so it's you get it. Okay. This guy, you get what the there is of Jamie. Yes. Obviously, he's the action guy. It would have been great to see that action sequence, because I'm sure he features prominently. He's the guy who pushes Trask over, I believe. At least that's how the narration goes. So he's sort of the hero of that whole thing.
He is, and it's. I got to say, okay. So I feel bad for Finch. Augustus for Finch. First of all, I misidentified him as the solicitor's servant. No, he's kind of the low-key the hero here. He's the good British officer that Polly kind of
turns out to be
a lot.
Yeah,
and he's flirting with Polly. He's the one who arrests Grey for the slaver scheme. He's the good guy, and he talks about he's bringing the villain to heel. And Polly says this whole thing of it wasn't just that, was it? Hinting that, I know you're sweet on me. I know you were trying to impress me. He gets a little kiss from it, which is lovely. But also, if he had been watching after that, he would have seen, this random Highlander that's been following them around. Polly just taking his hand and pulling him into this shed. And it's sort of like poor Finch, like he had a change of, like, he stood up against his fellow British soldiers, and he, stood up for what was right when it was really difficult, and all for the love of Polly, and then she just takes this random bit of beefcake in a kilt home.
You think Finch should have been the companion? That would have been something, right?
I feel like he earned it, and Jamie was just being Jamie throughout, like, and he barely has any lines, and it becomes clear after this. Like,
that'd be an interesting one if it was like Finch the companion and Jamie's left, because you definitely then have the love triangle, right?
Oh yeah,
in the TARDIS. That's something we could, yeah. Well, Finch have done as a companion, like, he's also out of time, right? But he'd be, the British soldier doing the right thing, so he kind of like would have earned his stripes. I'm not sure if this is a what if the evil plot had succeeded. This is more like what if there was a parallel Doctor Who history. I love it.
What if Polly had rewarded both of her brave soldier boys? Taking them both onto the TARDIS, but yeah,
it's a crowded TARDIS, bro.
It's getting super crowded up in there. But yeah, it's interesting because you would think after this, you would not suspect, watching the Highlanders or listening to the Highlanders and watching it in your brain, that this would become the greatest bromance in Doctor Who history, right? The Doctor and Jamie,
absolutely,
are the ultimate bromance, and of course, he's the longest-serving companion. And yeah, you wouldn't see it here. But Fraser Hines, I mean, he was the producers clearly saw some star quality in him. And his mother was Scottish, so he could do a vague imitation of the accent. He's doing his best, he and Hannah Gordon, to do their Highland Scottish accents, which are hard. They're hard, even for regular Scots. So,
I gotta say, again, as a Jamie debut story, it's kind of okay. You kind of just wish there was more there. And again, maybe there was, and it's just all sort of on the cutting room floor and mostly visual. As a companion story, though, I gotta say, the Highlanders is pretty good. In my view, so far, this is the best Ben and Polly story I've seen. I think they're both great as characters. They're both driving action and, taking charge. Now, I'll say this about Ben. He's a little naive at the beginning. It's almost like he's still not used to this time travel stuff. And what? How come people aren't doing the things I expect? And I'm using slang like fiddle. And by the way, has fiddle ever been used to mean a ruse or something? Maybe I'm not with it for the 1967 lingo when everyone was playing fiddles on each other.
Yeah, it's a Cockney thing. But yeah, I don't know why he would have thought that the Scots would understand that. It's a fiddle. It's a fiddle. But he says it twice.
But he does some cool stuff. I actually really like that he takes charge of his own escape. So, they eventually duck him or try to drown him and tie him up. But he does a Houdini move. And he even explains it in episode 4, how I did it. Well, when they tied me up, he just flexed everything and got really big. And then, first of all, high risk. Holy cow, what if they just tighten stuff when you afterward or whatever? But he figured it out and escapes, swims to shore, and then runs into the Doctor in a weird mustache.
Yes, and shows off to Polly about the whole Houdini thing. And this is so we've encountered the Houdini thing before. The Doctor mentions Houdini a lot. Right. Starting with Pertwee, going all the way up to Whittaker. Does Shooty Gawa?
And then subsequently with Gawa. Gawa mentions a hot summer with Harry Houdini, I believe.
Harry Houdini. And you got to wonder if the Doctor is just sort of like this is where it starts. The Doctor is listening to Ben show off to Polly about how he did the Houdini thing. He's like, Houdini, eh? I must remember to look that chap up. I must visit him sometime when I'm not having a regeneration crisis.
After he learns the bagpipes, of course.
Yes, after he learned the bagpipes, which this may be one of the best things about the Highlanders, is that Jamie McCrimmon, of the Clan McCrimmon, which was famous for its bagpipes, it's a real clan, but by the way, they were on the other side. Clan McCrimmon was actually on the Scottish side. So.
Wait, on the Scottish side or the British side?
On the British side, sorry. Yes, on the government side was Clan McCrimmon, and Donald Ban McCrimmon is a famous piper, and supposedly they could move men to great acts of heroism on the battlefield.
Well, it sounds like we might be almost ready for slipping into the corner, but I did want to just sort of complete the thought on the companion stuff because I haven't talked enough about Polly. Also, Polly's great.
Well, I was just to complete the thought, by the way, Jamie's bagpipes are out of action, are put out of action in the opening scene. So thank God for that.
That doesn't translate again. That doesn't translate very well in the telesnap version. You kind of just get the stuff's going on, and there's the cannonball, and the doctor wants to leave, which is a freaking weird because what? The doctor wants to leave, and the companions want to explore. Weird beginning. Trying things out.
Polly is amazing in this.
Yeah, so she ends up with Kirsty. And there's a lot of like good sort of almost cop buddy stuff with the two of them as they sort of figure out what to do. They pose as orange sales girls or whatever. But all the stuff with Finch, right? Because they get trapped in the trap. And then Finch gets trapped in the trap afterwards. And then they do the whole blackmail thing with him. And that all seems to work really well and makes a lot of sense for what the relations between the sexes were at the time. He could never admit that he was like bested by a couple of girls. But I mostly like her interactions with Kirsty. Now, the bit in episode 1 where they have this conflict over the ring, which actually leads to the cliffhanger, that's pretty forced. Like that's sort of painted in because in the very next scene, she's in the trap and then she pulls her out. Sorry, I think I mentioned trap, but like the cave. They're in the cave first, and then she falls in the trap. So that's pretty contrived. But by the time they are in Inverness and they're dressed as the orange sales girls, and basically trying to use their sort of feminine wiles and whatever else to help with the doctor, they've got a good little dynamic going on, especially the part where Kirsty sort of admits that, oh, I'm not used to doing labor or whatever, and they're sort of gently ribbing each other. Yeah, that's obvious, says Polly. Like, not that Polly's from '60s London, I guess. She works for a living, so I guess she's a little more used to sort of hauling coffee for people, certainly, as we've seen in many episodes. But it was a good little back and forth, and she even says back to Polly at one point, you're bonny enough, and I said like almost a backhanded compliment. There. So yeah, like it was good. And then basically at the end, the ultimate part of it though is like Polly is also taking charge here and figuring out how to like rescue the doctor, rescue Ben, and just sort of make sure she has a whole plan to do that. So yeah, very good adventure for Ben and Polly. And is it time?
Indeed, and it might be time, since I do want to talk about Orange Girls, it might be time to enter the Pull to Open History Corner. Yes, that sound means we're in for some serious history here, and we're going to, of course, start with the tradition of pimping in the playhouses of King Charles II's London in the 1660s. And one Nell Gwynn, who Polly mentions, famously an actress who was the mistress of King Charles II, who was an orange girl. And the orange girls, what they would do is in the playhouses, they would sell oranges to men in the audience, but they would also pass on messages between men in the audience and actresses backstage. And they got tips, and some of those messages ended in assignations. So, so that's what Polly was imitating. But no, of course, there's a lot to talk about here in the History Corner. Let's talk about the Battle of Culloden, and let's talk about Bonnie Prince Charlie. And I want you to, when you think of Bonnie Prince Charlie, I want you to remember rule number 1, which is usually the doctor lies, but let's say Bonnie Prince Charlie, the young pretender, lies. He was kind of a habitual liar. He was kind of brought up to lie. So, okay, let's talk about, let's do the succession crisis in British history in a very brief period of time, by reference to Doctor Who characters. So, you remember the Doctor's wife, his first wife, Elizabeth I.
First wife? Okay, sure.
First wife, yeah, technically, in a timey-wimey way, she was kind of the first wife, right? But so far as we know. Anyway, it's all tangled and timey-wimey. She's on screen. Yeah. So she died without issue. I guess the doctor didn't do his duty. And then the throne passed to the guy from the Witchfinders, James I, played by Alan Cumming, who had his eye on Ryan and also on his eye on witches. That was accurate. And then James I's kid got to the throne, Charles I, and so James was the first Stuart monarch, and the Stuarts had this idea that kings ruled by divine right, which became, he was the King of Scotland, then he became King of England as well. That's how we had the unification of the thrones. It wasn't until Charles I, this whole thing of like, oh, hey, I can rule without parliament, I'm awesome, I'm an autocrat, all bound down to me. That caused a bit of trouble we call the English Civil War. After the Civil War, Charles II came to the throne, was restored, and the Restoration allowed Parliament more of a free hand. Meanwhile, London burned, and the Fifth Doctor was there in putting
Right. Let's get to Bonnie Prince Charlie.
Yes, so Charles II's brother was James II, who was forced off the throne because he was a Catholic, and then he had the old pretender as his Catholic heir, so we were going to have two Catholic kings. England, because of Queen Elizabeth was a Protestant nation, they didn't like this idea, so they kicked him off the throne, and then he basically just lived in Rome. At the Pope set up this house for him, and people from all across Europe, they called it the Jacobite cause because Jacobus is Latin for James, and it was James's son, Bonnie Prince Charlie, Charles Edward Stuart, born in Rome. He was just 25 when he hit the field at Culloden. It was his first battle. He was more Polish than he was Scottish because his mother was entirely Polish.
But wait a minute, the revolt happened the year before, started to, so 1745.
Correct.
Right? And then this is 1746. This is just after the Battle of Culloden. And
it is.
But so, this was his first fight?
This was his first battle.
And his last, I guess?
And his last, yes. He had witnessed a siege at the age of 13 for about 10 days. That was his only battle experience.
Wow.
So, he was the young pretender while the old pretender...
was he supposed to be the general, though? Like, he's the king, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he was the Prince of Wales, so-called.
Right.
Leading this battle. And
the point is, there were other people who were like in charge of the fighting, I assume. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe I don't.
He appointed people. We'll get there. But he also wanted the French. He wanted the French to back him. So he went to Versailles. He went to the court of the French King Louis XV, and he was there at exactly the same time as a certain young lady was introduced to the court at Versailles. Her name was...
Madame de Pompadour?
Correct! Ding, ding, ding! That's right!
Wow!
The girl in the fireplace was introduced to Versailles and perhaps distracted Louis XV from this strange kid who, with a Polish mum who dressed up in Scottish costume all the time, pretended to be Scottish. So he didn't get a lot of support from the French, but he told the Scots he had their support. He went up to Scotland. He told them he was in touch with English supporters. He lied. He lied about that. But still, he got a lot of Highland clansmen to support his cause. But as I say...
The McCrimmons. Oh, no, wait, not the McCrimmons. The McCrimmons are on the other side.
That's right. Although, it was really a civil war. There were literally brothers on the field on both sides. And he'd had this amazing string of victories. His chief advisor was a guy... Murray, was it? I forget his full name, but he was one of the military geniuses of his day. He could have won Culloden if he put this guy in charge. Instead, he put his Irish supporter, O'Sullivan, in charge. There were a lot of Irish people on the field that day. But they'd got as far as south as Derby and Manchester and raised troops there before retreating in 1745.
Interesting.
So... Okay. Culloden was a mess, and to bring it up to date, in 1961, there was a great book called Culloden by a Scottish historian called John Preble, who you can actually read this book and see a lot of the plot of the Highlanders in it. Like it describes what happens at Culloden, and they're almost like word for word in some areas. There's kind of descriptions going on. There was a film of it in 1964. Go watch it on YouTube. The film Culloden is extraordinary. It is groundbreaking. It is in the form of journalism.
Wow.
So all the soldiers are sort of being interviewed as if to camera. And it was done on like a Doctor Who budget, which is extraordinary.
Nice.
Like it should be every Doctor Who director should be forced to watch this, because there are never like more than 10 or 12 extras on screen at any one time. And yet they give the impression of a full battle.
Did the Bonnie Prince Charlie, did he actually dress up as a woman to escape the battle? Or is that just a myth that the Highlanders is pushing?
That is a legend that I don't know if we know that it's true, but it was sometime after the battle. He basically abandoned his men. After, I want to say this, it took him half an hour to order his men to charge. They were sitting ducks. The British were shooting them with artillery. It's called a battle, but it was a slaughter. It took place in an hour. And he was either frozen by the horror that he saw, like suddenly seeing his cause die in front of his eyes. His men were tired. They'd been marching for 2 days. He thought, genius that he was, that he would surprise the Duke of Cumberland, the head of the government forces, on his birthday. Like, that was the whole idea of marching them for 2 days and not letting them eat and, showing up on the battlefield. Weird. Just like, yeah, it's weird. And
tired
they just
and
got
hungry
slaughtered.
troops, not good troops.
500 men died already before Bonnie Prince Charlie gave the order to charge. And then hundreds more died because the charge was just like, it was like the charge of the Light Brigade. It was awful. It was horrible.
Well, it's kind of remarkable the warlords decided this was such a great battle that they could select some of the best warriors in the universe from it. That's,
Well, if they wanted warriors who were drinking rum and eating cheese while the Scots were dying on the battlefield, and then after lunch, the British soldiers went out and basically bayoneted all of the dying soldiers. So much so that the field turned red, literally.
Wow.
This was some nasty stuff. Yeah. And Cumberland became known as Butcher Cumberland for it. So nobody comes out of Culloden looking good. But the cause starts to look good. And in fact, the Bad Wolf herself, Queen Victoria, was one of the people sort of celebrating the kind of the romantic image of the Scots Highlander that came to the fore because of Culloden, because the cause was so lost, because the Highland clan system was smashed after this. And good thing, too, because people like Jamie, younger than Jamie, as young as 13, were forced to fight here, by that feudal lord.
Wow.
They didn't want to be there. It was a horrible, horrible time. So anyway, so that's what this was based on. The documentary came out in 1964, and that's kind of the reason why they filmed this, right? And there was a BBC head of serials who wanted to write for the show, even though they'd already decided to wrap up the historicals. He was like, "Hey, I want to do something on Culloden," I guess because it was just in the air at the time. Everyone was talking about it. Right. Everyone was talking about that film.
Well, that was the writer, right? Who was that? Elwyn Jones?
Other dude. Elwyn Jones. He gets a co-writing credit, but he didn't actually contribute anything.
Apparently didn't write a word. Yeah, he apparently, was going to do the story, and I don't know why he couldn't, but basically Jerry Davis had to step in and just bang it out. And
it's because he had to go write some police procedural.
Well, for historical accuracy, I think he did fine. I think he also just thought about how to zero in on some specific things, so that it doesn't become this just sweeping historical epic, which they couldn't really do. By zeroing in on Gray and his whole sort of corruptness and trying to be essentially a slave trader, and harvesting people from the battles or victories or losses or whatever. I think that was very smart because you get it certainly creates a villain, a guy you really want to see taken down. But it also leads to some good situational stuff, and like one of the best lines I will say that I've heard in a while from Doctor Who, where I've never seen a silent lawyer.
Yes.
I think that's it. Which is like every now and then Doctor Who just gets you a line like, oh wow, that was pretty good.
Which is a cool line, but I think it is just after the Doctor has sort of stuffed a gag in the solicitor's mouth, in Solicitor Grey's mouth, which is like, whoa, Doctor, like this is a bit, again going back to that stuff. But okay, I'm going to blow your mind here. Yes, it was right to sort of lightly fictionalize events after Culloden and focus on the human level stories.
Yeah,
but there really was a solicitor called Grey.
Right, I read that
was involved in a scheme like this, and
so he really was corrupt. And that's impressive. Wow, look at all this. I think Doctor Who's last historical, for all intents and purposes, is what perhaps it's most accurate.
It really is, and my goodness, yes, and there were Highlanders who were sold. Not into slavery, but indentured servitude is what they called it. Often they just had to serve 7 years in Barbados, Jamaica. By the way, there are a lot of Scottish names in Jamaica. There is a Culloden in Jamaica, in part because of so many were shipped out. About 500 Scottish men were shipped out, and they were the lucky ones because most of the others died in jail.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I like the the brutality that they sort of show. They like the conditions on the ship. They make reference to how bad it smells, which is obviously very accurate. Like it was miserable existence to serve in a ship, and famously that's why crews were drunk all the time back in the day, just to keep them docile because it was just the worst possible conditions. So I like all of that. They did some fun stuff, and just kind of like It was you got a good sense of it sort of being as real as they could do it, notwithstanding all the goofiness that they sort of then added, perhaps inadvertently. And again, I'm glad they tried out some stuff, but they also tried out stuff to figure out what not to do.
It does show you the corruption on the British side as well. There's those wonderful moments where Finch with two Fs falls into the pit, and then the soldiers who arrive to bring him out are like basically, oh, this is thirsty work. I don't know if my men can do this. They're very thirsty, so very dry. And he's like, oh, okay, fine. Here's your bribe. Go get.
And he's got to promise to get it to them later. He'll get to a bank machine in Inverness.
Yeah, sure. I don't have anything on me right now. I got to
Venmo.
Venmo too. I love that idea. Oh my goodness.
All right. Well. That definitely answers the question of how historically accurate the Highlanders is. Highlanders are, anyway. But we're going to conjugate more verbs properly and answer some more questions. And those are the 4 questions to Doomsday.
My God, it's the British artillery.
Why did the randomizer take us here?
Well, it gave us both what we wanted, perhaps not necessarily in the form that we would have expected. But yeah, we got Dr. Von Ver.
This could be the most direct randomizer answer that we've ever gotten from our previous our request from the immediate preceding story.
But also, I want to say, this is kind of seasonally appropriate programming. Episode 2 was broadcast on Christmas Eve. Oh. There is a theory that that's sort of why episodes 2 and 3 are sort of a bit more comedic. They're the ones with the Doctor's multiple personas. Episode 2 broadcast on Christmas Eve, episode 3 on New Year's Eve. So, Hogmanay, if you're Scottish. And you can see this, it's almost Feast of Stephen-ish.
A little bit.
Yeah,
and we're recording this podcast sort of in the middle of Christmas break for everyone listening to it towards the end of January. Yeah,
this was our Christmas present from the Randomizer. It's entirely appropriate because it was, 1966 when the first few episodes were screened, and we're now in 2026, which also happens to be, so not just like, what is it, 60 years later, but it's also 280 years this year since Culloden.
Oh, wow. The 280th anniversary of Culloden. How about that?
That is correct.
Mark your calendars, people.
obviously wanted to acknowledge it, couldn't let us pass without tipping its tam o'shanter to Culloden and bringing in Jamie McCrimmon, because the randomizer wants to be Scottish, like a lot of Americans.
That beats it all. Yeah, other than that, there's the pretty clear through line of Doctor Who, not just from the Doctor Who and the Silurians, but going back to the War Machines, and it's just I think we're on a 3 win, place, or show Doctor Who kick here. So
right,
I'm sure,
and also going from the third Doctor's second episode, in which he was very assured and completely the Doctor already, as we remarked during the Silurians podcast, to the second Doctor's second story, in which he was nowhere near the Troughton that we know and love. So what an interesting contrast there. And I gotta say, thank you, Randomizer. You were tough but fair. You answered our question. I thoroughly enjoyed doing a deep dive in history into this, rewatching Culloden, the documentary which I watched as a kid. My God, that thing is rough.
Nice. Also open, sponsored by Culloden, the documentary. And
right. Sponsored by YouTube, which will serve you lots of ads during it inappropriately.
Beautiful. Okay, let's move on to the second question, which is, what if the evil plot had succeeded?
Well, it kind of did. I mean, that's the thing. More than 500 Highlanders were taken away on a ship. But I guess, what if the Annabelle plot had succeeded, right? Annabelle is the name of the ship. That, by the way, is appropriate. The slaver ships were all given sweet names of women and sweethearts, and horribly. So that's why it was called the Annabelle. But yeah, so what if that revolt fails, or I guess the Highlanders are defeated on board again?
Yeah, I suppose. And you can even assume the worst, which is that, the final bit with Jamie versus Trask, maybe Jamie who gets knocked overboard.
Yeah.
So Jamie dies in his debut. And then Ben is recaptured, the Doctor and Polly as well, and maybe they're all end up, if they're not killed right away, they'd be sold into servitude. So they're off to the West Indies to serve out like a 7-year contract or whatever. Which I think would have ultimately have a turnaround, right? Even we're talking about the Doctor here. He would figure something out, either capture the ship or figure out some way to get the plantation to get him to get on board and get back and do something about it. But it'd be a more tragic run up to the Faceless Ones. I think it wouldn't be a bittersweet ending; it'd be kind of a bitter ending.
Oh, I like the idea that instead of the Doctor exiled to Earth, the second Doctor exiled to Barbados. And just the rest of the Troughton era he's just sitting on the beach. He's just chilling. There's no unit. There's no aliens landing. It's all chill.
Yeah.
But then it all turns out to be part of the war games. But I also, I like that idea of, you just sort of take Jamie McCrimmon out of the picture. But also, Jerry Davis partly based this on Kidnapped, the Robert Louis Stevenson novel, which features a Highlander being taken on a ship to the Carolinas. It's going to be taken to South Carolina. But they managed to stop the ship in the Highlands, and the character gets off. So I sort of feel like that's what would have happened here. Even if the evil plot had succeeded so far as the ship leaving with the Dr. Ben and Polly on board or whatever, they would have been able to, do what the character does in Kidnapped and just come back from that and walk back to the TARDIS. This is one of the few historicals where they actually care about where the TARDIS is and how hard it is to get back to it.
Right, and it makes sense that they kind of need Jamie to get back there. So I like that he's sort of, I got some line about, I'll show you around the Glen or whatever. So it is one of those things. I mean, you could fill in the blanks if you don't do that, but it is always nice where they show a little bit more attention paid to the details of this. Makes it definitely more real. So I think that the evil plot succeeding here because it is a historical episode. It's lower stakes than most of your other evil plots, but still, it's probably as low stakes as they are. They're pretty dark stakes if they end up as slaves or something like that. And you got to wonder about Polly, right? Who would not probably make out so well, and probably less said about that, the better.
Yeah, they also mentioned that the British troops, the sort of hints that the British troops, did not treat the women of Inverness well. They even sort of hint that directly in the dialogue. So, poor Polly.
All right, well, let's get away from Polly for a second, but we're going to go to another lady, which is the subject of the third question. Where is the Clara Splinter? Clara Oswald, of course, splintered in time at the end of The Name of the Doctor. She's somewhere in every single Doctor Who story. Where is she in the Highlanders?
Well, you may remember when way back when we did Demons of the Punjab, set in the middle of the partition of India, which was, as I noted at the time, a horrific time with millions of people killed. I sort of felt then that Clara's main job was preventing the Doctor from seeing the true horror outside, and
right.
I think the same thing has happened here. I think, first of all, there may be multiple Claras here. I think, first of all, Time Lady Clara, who ushered him into the Type 40 TARDIS in the first place, has sort of programmed it, made sure that it never lands in the middle of a battle.
Oh, okay.
It lands after Culloden here. I think there's a reason for that. I think that if the Doctor had seen the true horror of Culloden, he would not have been able to help himself, especially post-regeneration crisis. He would have, never mind Finch, he would have gone after the Duke of Cumberland for being such a butcher. I mean, we say the Doctor doesn't interfere unless there are crying children, that wonderful line from Matt Smith's second story, The Beast Below. There were crying children here on the battlefield. There were 13-year-old boys being bayoneted on the battlefield. How would the Doctor not turn into blind rage in that? So I feel like, Clara's doing a lot of maneuvering behind the scenes to make sure that the Doctor doesn't go in here, and maybe laying a lot of clothes out in his path so he can keep changing and get distracted by that.
Yeah, you get the sense did she crack the Doctor on the head at some point early on here, or maybe it was that cannonball, maybe there was some shrapnel that hit him that sort of knocked him back into his regeneration crisis mode. Yeah, I feel like something like that might have happened. Other than that, there's probably a few places she could be. I like to think that she's the one who dug the bear trap or the animal trap, so that it sort of forces Polly and Kirsty to bond, knowing that is a key part of what happens here. So, because otherwise, I'm not quite sure what she's doing in the. What's the name of the pub? The Eagle? The
Eagle? The Eagle Inn. Yes, the Eagle Inn in Inverness. I also sort of feel like she may have talked to Perkins beforehand, Gray's servant, and been like, look, I have this really violent friend, and I'm so sorry about it. Or he's a doctor, just trust him, whatever he does, he may, but instead of bloodletting, he's using this novel technique where he bangs your head on the desk, and just don't worry about it, stick with it, just do whatever he says, and he won't
trust
get any
him,
more
he's a doctor.
Trust him, he's a doctor.
All right. We're going to move on now to the final question, but not before I tell you all about our newsletter, which you can subscribe to at pull2open.net. You'll get full written notes on every single random story. There's always a few notes we don't get to, so there's fresh content. Plus, it is a great way to stay up to speed on when the podcast posts. You will get an email right in your inbox, and you can watch the podcast right from that. How about that? And now it is time for the fourth question, the final question, the only question that matters for the Highlanders. What did we think of this story? The Pull to Open rating system has 7 ratings. There's the Dalek, which we give to a good episode of Doctor Who. The Ogron, which we give to an irredeemably bad episode of Doctor Who. The Professor Hater, which is a not-so-good story, but hey, at least they tried something. The Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. The Fixed Point in Time, which is a show beyond rating, usually for reasons of nostalgia. The Lady Cassandra, which is a paper-thin plot, but hey, at least it looks good. Or The Zarbi, which is a story so bad, hey, it's actually kind of good. What do you say about the Highlanders?
Well, as you said at the top of the podcast, Pete, you've got to fix point in time at least some of this, because there's just so much we don't know about the performances. And also, it's sort of like, it was the last historical. They'd already decided they didn't want to do them anymore. But, this dude comes along and he's like, hey, I'm the head of serials at BBC. Let me write a story. Oops, got to go. Bye. So kind of a bit fixed point in time-ish for that. You could say it's Professor Haterish, because you could say they learned not to do a lot of things, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, yes, Troughton, after this, learned to rein in his performance. We didn't mention the hat thing, by the way.
Yeah.
The more Doctor Who history we go through, the more I like what Stephen Moffat has done, like with giving the Doctor his hat fetish in his 11th incarnation. Like, it was Troughton's catchphrase idea was, I should like a hat like that. That he uses in this, and retroactively uses, I think, in episode 4 of Power of the Daleks. Anyway, so you could say it's a hater. I don't think so. After reading it, as a historian, I kind of appreciate the attention to detail and the mostly truth of this. I think it's a fixed Dalek in time.
Wow.
I think it's probably if we were able to see it all, if it is still in someone's attic, I think it will turn out to be a decent episode of Doctor Who. I think, what we have, the telesnaps we have, it looks very atmospheric. And I don't think that the Doctor's shenanigans with hats and disguises are out of the ordinary necessarily for the Doctor that we know. The violence maybe a little bit, but if you see it as a regeneration crisis, no. So I think it's more just a good story, good solid story that probably, but fixed in point in time because we don't really know.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I actually feel like there's enough here to go on that I'm pretty confident it's a hater, so that's what I'm going with. It's basically like, they're trying to do a historical, but they're figuring out the fit for Troughton's Doctor, and
right.
Maybe it just, again, they made some sort of decisions there that turned out I'm glad they tried it, but it's the definition of a hater, right? They tried something and they learned a lot. So that's honestly like where I think this lands. I almost gave it more of a Dalek hater hybrid, but mostly because of Ben and Polly. I did really appreciate sort of them being drivers of the story and sort of taking control of their own destiny here. But ultimately, it's Doctor Who. The Doctor matters a lot, and he's not quite himself. And for that reason, I'm keeping it as a hater.
He's just a madman with a box. I like that. I mean, yes, I see the hater. A madman with several hats that he should like. Yeah. Yes, okay. Professor McHater, I believe you meant to say.
Exactly.
From McDarlington University. No, stop it with us, Scottish. Professor Hater had ancestors on both sides.
All right. Well, from there, here in the Scottish Highlands, we're going to find our TARDIS here in the plane somewhere and activate the randomizer to find out where we're going next.
Yes, pausing only to sneak a look up Fraser Hines' kilt and discover, what's this? He wore shorts? He wore khaki shorts underneath his kilt? Fraser, come on, be a true Highlander. Anyway, we don't take a picture while we're there. That would be bad. That would be illegal. That would be upskirting. We run into our TARDIS, our randomizer, which has two components. One is the Codex, which Peter's sitting in front of. That is the complete list of stories in sequential order in the show called Dr. Von Ver. Pete, how many episodes of Dr. Von Ver do we have left?
We have 164 stories. How about that?
Yes.
So close to the halfway mark.
64, the year that Culloden came out. Yes, I should be sponsored by Culloden, the estate of Peter Watkins. Call us Peter Watkins. Anyway, I plug those numbers 1 and 164 into the other part of the randomizer, the Executor, played by random.org, which looks at stuff bouncing around the atmosphere, and the wind blowing through the glens affects it as well, and comes up with a truly random number, not a fake Bonnie Prince Charlie kind of cosplaying Scottish random number, which is what algorithms would give you. Cosplaying randomness. Before I hit the generate button to get a completely random story, we like to ask the randomizer, and we're kind of on a bit of a roll here. We might be feeling a little confident about the randomizer actually giving us what we want here for the first time in Pull to Open history.
So it's time to ask it for some things, and I think it'd be a little too on the nose to ask for more Doctor Who references. But here's the thing. So a few stories ago, we were at the War Machines, right? Towards the end of Hartnell's run. Then we were at the Silurians, beginning, as you identified, the beginning, close to the beginning of someone's run, and now close to the beginning of another one's run. I think to complete this sandwich, we need another story that's towards the end of a Doctor's run. So that's what I'm going for. Then we have some nice symmetry with the last these four stories in a row.
Cool. Well, I also am going to pay attention to the fact that the randomizer really seems to want to show us a lot of Ben and Polly. Having gone from the War Machines to this, we've already done Power of the Daleks. We've done the Moon Base, we haven't done the Faceless ones, and we haven't done the Underwater Menace.
Or the Macra Terror.
Or the Macra Terror. So
then we would have bingo for those.
Yeah. I'm going to say, it's a crowded TARDIS at the end here, so give us a TARDIS with this many companions, which gives you the option. I don't want to say to the randomizer, give us more Ben and Polly and Jamie, but I do want to say, you have the option to do that, but you also have the option to give us another crowded TARDIS situation.
Got it. So 3 companion TARDIS is what you're asking for. Interesting.
Because it never gets more than that, right? Unless you're talking about Stolen Earth Journey's End.
Exactly. But we'll take it. We'll take that crowd.
We'll definitely take
3 plus. That. We'll take 3 for 3 or more. All right. Giving the countdown. Here we go. In 4, 3, 2, 1, pull.
Affirmative.
77.
Oh my, 77. Let's see where we're at. That takes us all the way to Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel.
Oh my goodness.
My goodness gracious.
Wow. And Pete, of course, as if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can see that Pete has a Cyberman head behind him the whole time.
Look at this guy here.
Yep, Chekhov's Cybermen. It was there. It was bound to go off at the end. We're stepping into a parallel universe.
It's so funny. I got that up for Trouton, right? Because the Cybermen are like his big villain. Yeah. And so why not? But the randomizer is a very visual creature this year, I guess, this season. So
That's right.
Just ignored everything we said and just sort of saw what I had in my background. That sounds cool. Let's do Rise of the Cybermen.
Well, Rise of Cybermen, Age of Steel. So that's Rose, obviously. Mickey.
Mm-hmm. So it's about as crowded as Tennant's TARDIS gets outside of Journey's End.
Now, does Pete get in the TARDIS? Does Jackie?
Don't think so.
No.
Not okay. At this point. These are the parallel versions of them. But yeah, it's great. So it's really interesting. We had done we'd done Daleks some time ago, the debut of the Daleks in the new series. This is obviously the debut of the Cybermen in the new series. And I'm excited to get to it. This is interesting. Going back to season 2 or series 2. Tennant's first season, and lots going on in this one. Multiverse action.
That's right. We've gone from a doctor in Scotland who mercifully does not put on a Scottish accent to a doctor with a natural Scottish accent who's playing a Cockney in David Tennant. I don't think there are any Scots references, but we'll find out.
We'll find them if they're there, folks, and we will see you next time. This has been Pull to Open. It is a podcast. Podcasts are great things to listen to subscribe to follow, but the absolute best thing you can do with a podcast is share it with a friend. Thank you very much, Martin West, for your music. You're always making us sound a little bit better every single time, and we're very grateful for it. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Pull to Open or Pull to Open 63, and throw some Whomojis our way. And hey, why not review the podcast on Apple Podcasts while you're at it? We will see you next time for the rise of these guys in my background.
Yeah, we'll see you in Pete's world, and don't forget to bring your Bluetooth headsets.
Steal yourselves.